Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I am going to talk about poor man's covered call versus covered call, or you can call it rich man's covered call. So before we start, I just want to give a disclaimer that options are risky. You can lose all your money. So whatever I say here is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not responsible for any losses you incur following any strategy. So the outline of this video would be the definition of poor man's covered call and rich man's covered call, differences and similarities, the pros and cons, when to use both strategies, and how to place the trade. So what is a poor man's covered call? A poor man's covered call is a diagonal spread that involves buying an in-the-money LIP call option, which represents 100 shares of stock, and selling a near-term out-of-the-money call option. It is basically a leverage way to do covered call. So what is a LIP option? A LIP option is an option that has a longer expiration cycle. That means the option can expire in 1 to 2 years. So what is a rich man's covered call, or the actual covered call? A covered call is a stock option strategy that involves buying 100 shares of stock and selling an in-the-money or out-of-the-money call option against it. Now that you know the definition, what are the differences and similarities between a poor man's covered call and a rich man's covered call? In a poor man's covered call, it is a leveraged stock replacement strategy. That means you're only trading the option, not the stock. But in a rich man's covered call, you're buying 100 shares times the number of contracts you're willing to sell. Also, in a poor man's covered call, there is no purchase of stock, no dividends, and voting rights. But in a rich man's covered call, since you're buying 100 shares of the stock, you can benefit from dividends and voting rights. And lastly, the value of a poor man's covered call is affected by derivative factors such as implied volatility and the option Greeks, while the value of a covered call or rich man's covered call is predominantly affected by the supply and demand of the stock. So what are the similarities? A poor man's covered call and a rich man's covered call are neutral to bullish strategies. So you're seeking to profit from further decay or the increase in the price of the stock. Also, these strategies are a great way to earn income as a retiree. Now that you know the differences and similarities between a poor man's covered call and a rich man's covered call, what are the pros and cons? In a poor man's covered call, less capital and margin are required, so you would be able to make a high percent return on investment. However, the dollar return is similar or slightly lower than a rich man's covered calls. The cons for a poor man's covered call are LIPs do not last forever, they expire. Since you are only trading options, they will expire when the expiration cycle reaches. Another con is that you cannot calculate the break-even or maximum profit for a poor man's covered call because you're trading options on different expiration cycles. The third con for a poor man's covered call is that LIPs have wider spread, so it is harder to trade them. And lastly, you can see a huge negative percent return because you are leveraging a covered call strategy. Remember that leverage is a double-edged sword. You can make a high percent return on investment and also a high negative return on investment. In a rich man's covered call, you can earn extra income such as dividends because you're buying 100 shares of that stock. Also, there is no expiration, so you can own the stock as long as you want, hence less commissions and fees. The cons for a rich man's covered call are that you require a lot of capital or margin to begin a trade. Also, you would see a low percent return, especially on safe blue chip companies. And lastly, you can face a huge downside risk if the stock crashes, so you would become a bag holder. Now that you know the pros and cons of this strategy, what should you look for before placing a trade? Since both strategies have similar outcomes, the things you should look for before placing a trade are similar. However, there are specific things you should check before placing a poor man's covered call trade. For both poor man's covered call and covered call, you should only trade reliable companies / sectors, example the blue chip stocks, SEF ETF, etc. Stay away from pharmaceuticals and biotech stocks and also stocks that are announcing earnings. The second thing you should look for are stocks with neutral to bullish price action and low swings. You can also trade stocks with large swings depending on your risk tolerance. And the third thing you should look for are choose stocks with low implied volatility percentile / rank, presumably below 50%. And lastly, you should trade stocks that you're willing to hold in case it drops in value. Dividends paying stocks are great, but you do not really need it as a requirement. Now that you know the things you should look for before placing a poor man's covered call or a rich man's covered call, how do you place the trade? So to place a poor man's covered call trade, you buy an in-the-money LIP call option and sell a near-term out-of-the-money call option. You should make sure that the extrinsic value of the LIP is equal to or less than the credit received from selling the near-term out-of-the-money call option. And extrinsic value is equal to the option value minus the intrinsic value. And the intrinsic value is equal to the stock price minus the option strike price. You should make sure that the debit spread is not greater than 85% of the width of the diagonal spread. And the width is equal to the out-of-the-money call strike minus the in-the-money call strike. To do a rich man's covered call, you buy 100 shares times the number of contracts you're willing to sell. So if you want to do one contract of a poor man's covered call, you just buy 100 shares. But if you want to do 5 contracts, you buy 500 shares. And when you buy the 500 shares, you sell an out-of-the-money or in-the-money call option. So now that you know basically everything about poor man's covered call and a rich man's covered call, let's do a trade. Alright guys, this is my brokerage account and I would be using Microsoft as an example today. Remember that everything I do today is just for educational and entertainment purpose, and nothing should be traded in real life trade because you can lose a lot of money or make a lot of money. So in today's example, we will be doing a diagonal spread, which is Microsoft. We'll be selling the July 10th 207.5 strike, and we're buying the January 15, 2021 $130 strike. For the covered calls, we'll be buying 100 shares and selling the same strike as the diagonal spread, which is the July 10th 207.5 strike. So the things to consider before choosing your strikes are: is it a low high-V rank stock? Is it a blue chip or company that will not go bankrupt soon? And also for the poor man's covered call, the specifics you should consider are the extrinsic value less than or equal to the out-of-the-money near-term call option sold. Is the debit spread equal to or less than 85% of the width of the diagonal spread? So I already considered this before choosing these strikes to use. So to place the trade, we will first do the poor man's covered call. We'll be buying the $130 LIP for January 15, 2021 expiration, and we will be selling the July 10th 207.5 strike. So when you buy and sell at the same time, the net difference is what we will pay for. So we bought this at $70 and we sold this at 2.25. So the net will be the mid price is 66.35, and when you use option multiplier, you would actually get $6,635. So the profit for this trade will be $1,115, and the maximum loss you can lose is the amount of money you paid for the trade, which is $6,635. To do a covered call strategy, it's almost the same thing, but you would be buying 100 shares and you'll be selling the July 10th 207.5 strike price. So to buy 100 shares, you just click on, you look for long stock, then you click on go, then you can type in the amount you want here. Then we will go to the July 10th and sell the 207.5 strike price. So you can see here we're buying 100 shares and selling a call option against it. So our mid price would be $192.80, and if you use the option multiplier, it will be $19,280. So you can see immediately the difference in the price of a diagonal spread and a rich man's covered call. And the maximum profit when we analyze this trade is $1,470, but your maximum loss if the trade goes to zero is $19,280. So now that you know how to place a poor man's covered call and a rich man's covered call, let's look more into it. So I made another calculation showing everything that we did, that the total mid price was like $6,635, and the maximum profit we earned was $1,115. For covered call, the maximum the total purchase price was $19,335, and the maximum profit we made was $1,415. So as you can see, the maximum profits are a little bit similar, but the rich man's covered call is actually higher than the poor man's covered call. But if you look at the returns, you would see a huge difference. In the poor man's covered call, you actually made 16.8% using this strategy, but in a rich man's covered call, you only made 17.32%. Why is that so? It is because you're using a huge capital to start with, but for a poor man's covered call, you're using a lower capital. And when you actually take this and divide by this, you take the 16.8 and divide by 17.32, you would find that the poor man's covered call returns is 2.3 times than that of the rich man's covered call. Alright guys, this is all I got to show you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and the video was not boring. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions you would like to ask me, please put it in the comment section below. I'm glad to answer whatever question you ask. Alright guys, thanks for watching and have a nice day.